What's up guys, welcome to this dose of quick reviews, and I mean really quick reviews here because I'm only talking about 3 films today. And let's get straight into it. Dragged Across Concrete. This is a crime thriller film, and it's very gritty, very dark, very slow, very long. So that kind of sums up my feelings about the film in a nutshell. I think it is just okay. From this director whose name I'm forgetting off the top of my head, I think this is his worst film so far, but not a bad film by any means. The problem is it is so slow, it is so long. It's a 2.5 hour film, but it feels like the story and the plot just isn't there to make it up to that length of time. So what it's about, basically you've got these 2 cops who get suspended for misbehavior, let's say, and they live in tough times, let's say that as well. Mel Gibson is the main character, Vince Vaughn is his partner. Mel Gibson is having some troubles in that his wife is ill and she needs a better lifestyle essentially in order to cope with it all. And his daughter is getting abused and bullied by local thugs basically. So Mel Gibson wants to get them out of this lifestyle, he wants to move them to a new location. And Vince Vaughn at the same time, he's planning on getting married, he's wanting to start a life of his own, so he wants to kind of move away as well and do his own thing. So they've got these motivations, but then this thing happens where they do get suspended, they lose their jobs, so what they're going to do to try and move on with their goals? Well, they find this big crime gangster guy, and they plan to rob him, because of course you would. And that's kind of all the film's about. So the first half of the film is kind of setting up what they're going to do. The next half of the film is all about them trying to execute it. The problem is, so much of them trying to execute it is them sitting in a car watching them. That's literally most of this film. Most of the 2.5 hours of this film is just Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson sitting in a car looking at the camera. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, but it's not exactly the most captivating or entertaining stuff in there. I think their characters are great, they're really well developed, really well acted. So Mel Gibson, let's get onto him, because this is a pretty big issue. Mel Gibson is both the best and worst thing about this film. The performance of Mel Gibson, he is a great actor. This is a great performance. And the lead character, he's got great motivations, great background, great personality. They are bouncing off some jokes with each other. They've kind of got this weird buddy cop relationship with each other, but they never smile or laugh or anything like that, which is a little odd. But yeah, the performances of the 2 leads are great. But Mel Gibson, yes, it's a good performance. Yes, he's great in this role. Yes, the character's great, but it's Mel Gibson. And if you don't know, Mel Gibson is a controversial individual these days. There are arguments that maybe he shouldn't be in films, maybe he shouldn't be making films anymore. And so that was constantly in the back of my mind while watching this, is that trying to ignore the personal life of Mel Gibson and the things he said and done, and try to focus on the art that's in front of us. So that's something just to be aware of. Some people might not be able to do that. Some people might be like, oh, it's Mel Gibson, I can't watch that. Other people might just not give a damn or might not even know. So that's just something to point out. One of the things that's really annoying about this film is that, again, there's not a lot of story, but it's 2.5 hours long. So it feels like they're deliberately trying to drag things out. There's one point, like halfway through the film, they introduce a new character who they give them a quick backstory, quickly establish who they are, what their relationship is. They're in no way connected to the actual main story that's going on at this point, but it spends like 10 minutes diving into who this character is, what their current situation is, what their relationship is with some other people. Then all of a sudden, bang, that character gets killed in a really gruesome, over-the-top, violent way. For no real reason. Yes, it's a key plot point in the movie. It sets up what is essentially the final act of the movie, but it feels like this 10-15 minutes focusing on this one character was a little unnecessary. You didn't need all that build-up. Essentially, all the director and the writers wanting to do, because they're the same person, is introduce this character, and then when this character dies, they want you to feel something. But the problem is, it kind of negates any feeling when it's so over the top and so gruesome and gory and violent just for the sake of it. And that goes for a lot of the violence in this film, in that it feels like they're being almost gratuitous about it. It feels like they're going further than they need to. There are there's also another character whose story kind of weaves in and out with Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn's, and it's not apparent till about like halfway through how everyone's going to come together and how their stories are going to merge. But ultimately, this film, Dragged Across Concrete, is an okay film. If you've seen like Bone Tomahawk, if you've seen Brawl and Cell Block 99, I don't think it's as good as them ones, but I would recommend you see them films. They are good films compared to this. This is just a perfectly okay crime thriller, and I think it just needed to cut out some of the fat a little and to focus in on the story a bit more. But that's my review of that. Next up, Welcome to Marwen. So Welcome to Marwen, when I first saw the trailers of this film, I was like, what the hell is this? This looks really weird. Because the trailers depicted it out almost like a Toy Story kind of thing, where there was live action stuff going on with Steve Carell, and then there was like CG puppets and toys and figurines, and the trailers didn't really make it clear what the film was about, what was going on. So then the reviews came out and didn't do great. So I kind of just put this on the back seat and never thought about it again. Then all of a sudden it came out and I thought, you know what, I've got nothing else to do, I'll give it a go. And I was actually really surprised. I like this film quite a bit. So what it is, it's about Steve Carell's character, who, the live action Steve Carell, has been the victim of an assault, a really violent, gruesome assault. He's left for dead and he's lost all of his memories. He doesn't remember much about his life or anything. He was an illustrator. Now all of a sudden he's not able to draw anymore because of the injuries he's had. He can't do the job that he had all of his life. And he didn't deserve to be attacked like this. He didn't deserve what happened to him. So in order to try and cope with what's happened to him, to try to come to an understanding of what's happened to him, but also just to move on and get a new living for himself, he's making these figurines out of like toys and action figures. He's got this small town and he's kind of putting people and events that he's experienced into this. So all the toys are based on people that he knows, and the actual events that he's making them carry out are kind of like fantastical reimaginings of things that have happened in his life. So for example, the gang that attacked him is envisioned in the toy form as Nazis, and he is depicted as this big like action man, World War hero guy. And I think it's really touching, really emotional story in there. It does a good job of showing how you can deal with trauma, how you should deal with it, and how you shouldn't deal with it as well. And there's some good comedy in there. The toy stuff is actually really entertaining. I think that's the main entertaining element on there. And the actual live action stuff isn't quite as good as the toy stuff, I would say. The CGI works really well in the toy stuff. The way that they've depicted the toys and how they are. They have got like the wrist joints and so on. They're not like depicted as like people exactly. They are clearly depicting them as toys. The relationship between Steve Carell and some of the other live action characters though is a little odd. For example, they never really explain why so many people love him. Yes, he's clearly not any harm to anyone. Yes, he's a lovable guy, but it doesn't go into like how they know each other. Did they know each other before the assault? Did they know each other afterwards? What's their relationship? How are they working things out? It doesn't delve into that, and you kind of don't need that. You just need to know these are people that are his friends, I suppose. But it would have been nice to touch on that a little bit. And some of the people that he's basing the toys' lives on, some of them aren't really big roles. So for example, one of them is based on the person who taught him to walk again, but she's only there for like a blink and you miss it role, so it doesn't really delve into that character much or why she's there. You could totally forget what that character is based on. But yeah, this film surprised me a lot. Really emotional, really touching, really quite an important story in there as well. And yeah, I would recommend it. It's not the best film ever by any means, but it's very enjoyable, and yeah, go check it out, I would say. Last film I'm talking about today is Vice, the film all about Dick Cheney. Now this is a biopic, kind of, because so much about this is kind of just making assumptions and guesswork based on facts and what we do know. So there's like, it's probably like almost 50-50, like this was real, this wasn't. And the film makes it very clear when it didn't actually know what was happening. It's like a borderline, it's a comedy film in many ways. So the problem is that tonally, I think the film's a bit of a mess. At times it's trying to be a really serious, dramatic biopic, telling the life and times of Dick Cheney. and at times it's trying to be a bit of a farcical comedy. It's like, hey, look what this guy did, ha ha ha, and it doesn't really mesh very well at times. It's like they didn't know what they wanted the film to be entirely. It's part documentary, part drama, part comedy, and it just doesn't mesh together. On the positive side of things, you've got Christian Bale. Christian Bale portraying Dick Cheney. He's changed his weight again, he's changed his appearance again. And brilliant performance, very subdued performance by him. Because Dick Cheney was a quiet individual, he was the kind of guy who would listen, and then when he talks, everyone listens to him. So I think it does a good job of depicting just what Dick Cheney was like, what Dick Cheney, how and why he was a significant, important individual. And then his relationship with George Bush, the second George Bush, the President George Bush, who essentially is portrayed as being a bit of a joke in this film. He's like the stupid kid who just wanted to get this job just because his dad had the job, basically. And Dick Cheney essentially is portrayed as the guy who was actually running things behind the scenes, who was actually the president for... And the problem is that I don't know how accurate that is. I doubt that George Bush was actually that much of an idiot. I doubt he could get to that height without having some degree of intelligence. So, yeah, I think at times it's taking the farcical comedic sides a little too far, and I think most of it's on George Bush. But hell, it's a great performance from Sam Rockwell. So, yeah, what the film is actually portraying there is good, it's enjoyable, but you've got to question the accuracy, and you've got to question why they're doing it as well. But ultimately, this film, because of the total inconsistencies with it, it's just a bit dull. I never knew what I was supposed to be reacting to. I never knew how I was supposed to be reacting to it, rather. And yeah, beyond the actual performances of Christian Bale, Sam Rockwell, Steve Carell, and Amy Adams, there wasn't much else I liked about this film. And when it was focusing on like the 9/11 stuff and how Dick Cheney was behind a lot of the stuff going on there, I thought that stuff was interesting because that was stuff I was like aware of. That was stuff that I was like, right, I know the story here, but I don't really know what's happened, how it went down. So that stuff I found really interesting. The rest of the stuff about his origins and then anything surrounding that, I thought was just a little dull. Then I really liked the bits with his daughter. His daughter in here, who is a lesbian, who essentially, when they find this out, Dick Cheney's like, right, I'm not going to run for president because I don't want her to get all this attention simply because I'm running for president. It's not fair on her. That really humanized him for me and really showed you that, you know what, this guy, he's done some questionable things to say the least, but you know what, he cares about his family, he cares about his daughter, and I like that a lot. And one of the interesting things is that was his reaction to it, but Amy Adams, who plays his wife and who plays their daughter's mother, her reaction was much more like, oh crap, what we're going to do now? She was much more looking at it from like a disappointment side of things. Not disappointment at daughter, but disappointment like what it meant for them. So I like that whole storyline and how that played out in the film. But otherwise, a little boring, a little dull, didn't really come together very well, I don't think. And those are the 3 reviews that I'm doing today. Just 3 quick ones. Hope you've enjoyed them. Thanks for watching this video. If you've liked it, subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate that. Please subscribe. It takes 2 seconds to click a button. You can also give me a thumbs up if you want. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton if you want. Until next time though, thanks for watching.